Welcome everybody to Stack Your Future Career Week. This is our last session, so we saved the best for last. We are so happy to have our alumni, two of our alumni who were STAR students here, and now they're STAR alumni in my eyes. Before I introduce them, I do want to just mention, please keep your microphones muted during the conversation. We are going to be recording this session, and what we'd ask is if you have a question, throw it up in the chat. If you're in a class and you're not able to do that, maybe just ask your professor if they could put it in the chat for you, and we'll address them as we go along or at the end, depending on whether it's a pressing question or not. But without any further ado, I'm going to introduce. We have Amanda Lawrence. She is one of our alumni who is now an auditor investigator for the FBI. And we also have Janine Grillo, who is the Senior Associate of Growth and Strategy at KPMG. So welcome to you both, and thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule today to be with us. So we're going to kick this session off with just a few questions, and I have Amanda on my screen right now, so I'll start with you. Can you just share your story as to how you got to where you are today with us?
Sure, no problem. So when I was a senior at STAC, I decided I needed, a job to get a little bit of extra money, and I saw on actually the STAC career page, a gym in Pearl River was hiring someone as a front desk. So I went in for the interview, had a great relationship with my boss, and from there I just started meeting people. It's actually in Blue Hill Plaza, which is two huge office buildings. And so a lot of the people that came down to the gym worked in, different finance companies. And there was also the office of the New York State Attorney General who did Medicaid fraud. And just from getting to know people and, asking how their day was, them asking me how my day was, just really connecting to them on a personal level, didn't deal with anything with a career. I started getting to know people, know their names, what time they were going to come in, asking them, if they told me something was going on that weekend, just really kind of get to know people on a personal level. And when I decided that I was going to start looking for careers, through connecting with the people at the gym, I also connected with people at STAC. I was president of the business club, and through that, I was able to talk to Mary Voda and getting connections with her, just dealing with the club. She actually referred me to a job opening for the Attorney General in the Pearl River office. So when I went back to work the next day, I started asking people that I knew that worked there kind of what it was like, if they had any pointers, if they had any advice on who I could talk to. And just by connecting with them on a personal level, they wanted to help me and get me further in my career. And through the connections I made, I was actually able to get 3 personal references during my job interview. I had 2 investigators and one of the attorneys call my boss at that time. And she stated during my interview that the fact that I was able to connect with them and they already had, very nice things, very good things to say about me. She said that helped me put the edge over some of the people that were applying for the job. And I ended up working there for just under 3 years. Then I used my connections while working for the New York State Attorney General to kind of get some insight on how to apply for the FBI, who to talk to. I was put into contact by some of the investigators with agents that worked for the FBI. And then through those connections, I was able to get my job now, where I've been with the FBI for about 2.5 years.
That's awesome. We actually have one of the classes that's attending, I believe, is a criminal justice class. So they were just really excited to hear about one of our alumni working at the FBI. So yes. Yeah, maybe you could talk at some point during this a little bit about, what it's like to be working at the FBI.
And definitely.
But we'll jump to Janine for a moment. And I just would love you, Janine, just to kind of give your overview of how you got to where you are now with KPMG.
Yeah, so getting to KPMG was definitely a little bit of a journey. It started pretty early on. So I was part of the KPMG University Mentoring Program, which is at the college. I'm now the liaison, so it all came full circle. But actually getting to KPMG, you know, I had a mentor who I connected with quite a bit. So I was pretty persistent with just trying to meet with anybody at the firm that I could to not only talk about roles and my goals, but what was the firm like? What was the culture of the firm? Would I be a good fit? I knew that I wanted to be in a big firm. I just didn't know which firm I wanted to be in, what company I wanted to be in, where I wanted to go. So having a mentor to reach out to was massively helpful. I highly recommend the program. But after the program, what I was able to do was land my first internship in finance. So I was a financial analyst for our innovation groups, and I just absolutely loved it. And I made a lot of great connections. And one of those connections was one of the managing directors at the firm. And he's pretty high up. He's a very busy guy, but I just made it my point to say that I'm really interested in coming back. So that was my summer internship. That fall, I did another internship in a different group. But I always wanted to go back to that innovation group because business innovation was something I was just so fascinated by. And I felt like I'd found like my dream fit. So I wasn't going to give up on it. And even though that managing director, he was super busy. I mean, even though I was right at the firm, I was interning there with a group. It was so hard to get on his calendar. And maybe as a student, you might be a little reluctant when you get like a cancellation or somebody just saying like, hey, I'm like really busy. But also understanding that a lot of these people have multiple things going on as well as personal lives. So sometimes just getting on the calendar and then actually meeting takes a while. So it wasn't until like my second to last week of my second internship that I was actually able to go into his office, have a full conversation. And what that led to was eventually us nailing down a position I could join right after college. And the best thing I did was just to stay on top of it, to follow up with my contacts, to leverage anybody that I knew, whether in my old group or that managing director, to really kind of lock in a position or at least guide me towards something I'd be interested in. So I think my story with KPMG is just being persistent. Big firms have a lot going on, so don't hesitate to reach out multiple times or to different groups or different people to get what you need to apply to something you're interested in.
Yeah, and so it's like a theme between the two of you. It sounds like networking was really part of what led to you getting into the opportunities. I mean, I know there's a lot more than networking. You know, you also have to do your part in it, but they say 70 to 80% of job leads come through your network. And, you know, your persistence in talking with this high level exec at KPMG clearly paid off. You know, that was an excellent contact for you to pursue. And even like one of the things with Amanda's story that I loved is it was just natural networking. It wasn't that she was, you know, going to the gym to work to make sure she has a conversation with every person that came through the door. She just naturally was a nice person and made conversation. And, you know, people want to help people when they can, you know, people that they know. So it makes sense that networking can really impact you in terms of job leads and all that. So, all right. Well, Janine, while you're on the screen, I'm just going to ask, what were some of the key experiences or moments that really you felt impacted your success?
Yeah, I feel like STAC was just a really big part of that. I mean, the amount of support that I got, and I know Amanda mentioned Mary Boda. I mean, she was fantastic for me as well, and just being like a good sounding board whenever I had questions. But quite honestly, any lead that I had, any connection I made, I mean, nobody in my family was really in business. I was one of the only people headed in that direction, and I really didn't know anybody. So all my leads came from STAC, literally, whether it be my professors or people in career development. I mean, that's where I really felt like I grew the most and learned the most. So please connect with your mentors and on the campus and your professors and anybody in career development, because you never know who they know. And if you're a good student, you're persistent, you're following up, you just take a general interest in your future beyond STAC, it'll totally pay off. I've seen so many people gain so many contacts just through the college alone. So I feel like the people at STAC were just like so instrumental in that.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. Amanda, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. And I also think getting involved as much as I did join the business club when I was a freshman, started going through that. I became treasurer 1 year and then president my last 2 years. And just doing all the activities that we did, I was the senior that got interviewed during the mock interview. I felt like that helped me a lot because then when I went in for my interview, I wasn't really nervous. I knew what to expect. I had those pointers that they gave me in the back of my head, and I was calm and collected and just kind of was like, all right, you've already been through this, you can do it again. And just reaching out and having all those extra things to be able to talk about during the interview, not just being like, okay, yes, I got really good grades, but it's like I got really good grades and I also had this experience and learned, X, Y, Z from that. Just being able to connect with people, because you have to be able to be part of a team in almost every single job. So being able to join the sports I did and the different clubs, just being able to actually become a full-rounded person, I feel like STAC gave me that opportunity, and I've been using that for years to come. And I reached out to Maureen when I decided I was going to go from the Attorney General's office to the FBI, and being able to just reach out and say, like, I know I graduated a couple years ago. I need a new resume. I don't know what to do. And you and I sat down and we created the whole new resume. And that is one of the best things that I was able to bring forward, because now every year, if I decide to apply for anything else, I'm using that resume.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good point, Amanda, because we are here for the alumni as well as the students. So, some colleges don't offer that freely. It might be a little more complicated, but we are always here to help. And, that's one of the things in listening to both of you, again, I was thinking about is there is so much support here at STAC, and the faculty are amazing. I do feel like they really are looking at the student success, and they're happy to connect you if they can with great leads that they think of. I'm always reaching out to them for good students, like students that they would think would be interested in the opportunities that come across my desk. But, one thing specifically, Amanda, that I was thinking about for you with this accounting mock interview program, I think there was a lot to be said about you, that you were willing to volunteer for something like that. And that's one of those unique experiences that you could leverage in a conversation on an interview about, talk about a time you went above and beyond or something like that, right?
Yeah, I've used that a lot. And just showing you took the initiative, or that you volunteered for something that, you knew there wasn't going to be a reward for it. I've noticed in a lot of interviews I've been in, that's one of the main questions. What's something that you volunteered for that you knew that you might not, like, there's no clear reward for yourself? And I use that a lot. And actually now every year I come back and I'm part of the accounting panel that's there. So I still am coming back and trying to give back as much as I can, because I know that everyone that was there, I've, reached out to for advice or possible job offers. And I just feel like using whatever you can at school. I also did the IACBE case competition, and my team won that year. I used that. I said, I took on this extra role, and not only did we work as a team, it shows problem solving, but it also just shows that, you're going above and beyond than just what is asked of you.
And that's the thing. A lot of students, everybody's going to leave with a bachelor's degree. Everybody's going to have a particular major, maybe similar GPAs, but what makes a candidate stand apart? And those are some unique experiences that you had that most people wouldn't be able to say they did. So yeah, I think that was great. And I would guess that you think that definitely had something to do with how you have moved through these careers, those great.
Oh, completely.
Yeah. And then, Janine, I was going to ask you with the KPMG mentor program. So you mentioned that you were a part of that program while you were here. Do you want to just quickly share, what your experience was with that, so that any students who maybe aren't as familiar with it can get an understanding?
Yeah, so the mentoring program, which I really am a fan of, I got a lot out of it. So I was actually coming out of an internship experience where I was like, I didn't really enjoy that. I don't even know if like finance is for me. Where do I want to go? What are my next steps? And Maureen, you were actually the one that suggested the KPMG mentoring program to me. So naturally, I was like, let me give it a shot. Let me see who I can talk to. So I was paired with a great person. Our careers weren't totally aligned, which is sometimes good. So you can broaden and see what else is at a big firm like KPMG. But what was aligned is a lot of our interests and her interests in just generally helping a student get to where they need to be. And if it was KPMG, that was great. And she was willing to help out there. So just by talking to somebody, and I mean, your path might not necessarily be KPMG, but talking to somebody who is in this like corporate environment, who sees it on a large scale in a major firm that's globally known. I mean, that's such a great opportunity, whether you stay in it for a year, whether you continue even after graduation to talk to your mentor. I mean, it's such a great way to ask all those questions that you might not be getting answered right now by somebody who's actually out in the field doing it, and who's also navigating this crazy changing career environment since everything has literally changed. So I highly recommend it. I got a lot out of it. And for me, it was a great stepping stone for an internship once I gained interest in KPMG. But even if you're not and you have interest in other directions, industries, whatever, the mentoring program is great. And it's for all majors as well. I think a lot of people think it's just business majors, but psychology, there's so many industries too in KPMG. Like you could be in sports management and we have like a sports marketing department. Like there's so much you can explore. So don't hesitate to apply, even if you're not in accounting or finance or anything like that. But it was a good, fantastic experience for me.
Yeah, and I guess that was what kind of introduced you to KPMG originally, which, you know, so it definitely impacted you long term.
Yeah.
And just so everyone knows, Janine is now the liaison for KPMG and our college. So I work very closely with Janine in getting candidates. And if anyone would like more detail and would like to apply, they are still accepting applications till November. So, you know, just reach out to me and I'll get you the information on that. But yeah, so that was great that you participated. It sounds like, I mean, and I know you two now for so long that you both were so involved in different things while you were here at the college. And that stood out to me, the fact that you guys were doing so much here. It's a great way for me to recognize certain students when I hear their name frequently, when I meet with them frequently. So it's been wonderful to watch you guys as you've moved through your careers after you left STAC. So before I go on to one of my other questions, I do want to just ask Amanda, if you could just share, as we were saying before, just a little bit of your experience working at the FBI, because I know there were quite a few students, and we do have a criminal justice class here, who were kind of curious about that.
Yeah, definitely. So just like starting from the beginning, my application process took about a year. You go through different interviews, security clearances, and then you go into a background process, which takes about 6 months to a year, depending on kind of what goes on in your previous life, if you've traveled a lot, just different things they need to kind of look into. You do start, you go down to Quantico, Virginia for a week, and that's kind of your orientation. They go over different security clearances, and basically, I joke, you sign your life away on all the stuff, all the non-disclosures and everything. But I absolutely love it. I've been there, like I said, for about 2.5 years. Every single day is different. I'm a forensic accountant for them, but I also work on, I joined our crisis response team. So if any large event happens, that's just a collateral duty for me, which is one of the things that I love about it. You can work, we have intelligence analysts that are on our team. We have special agents that are on our team, and it gives me a little bit of outside work other than what I do on a day-to-day basis. But also at the same point, so I'm in the Newark office, and I get to work on every type of case. So I've worked on counterterrorism cases, counterintelligence cases. I've worked on local shootings. I've worked healthcare fraud cases. I currently have a couple high-profile cases that are going on. And you just kind of like, you work as a team. I could say that, like, I'm constantly having phone calls with my agents, text messages, emails. Basically, we're in constant contact working with them, our attorneys, our intelligence analysts, and everyone just helps each other. If you have a question you don't know, you can go to the person sitting right next to you. And if they don't know it, they're going to go find it. And it's just interesting. Like, I never have a dull moment. I'm actually going to be testifying in about 2 months the first time, so I'm a little scared about that. But I know my team's going to prepare me. And I mean, yeah, I don't know if there's any like specific questions or anything.
Let me see if anybody threw anything in the chat. Not yet. But,
I do have to throw this out there. We do have internships. We actually have a STAC student that I just kind of have been talking to for a couple months now, and she just put in her application to be one of our interns. We do paid internships, and actually a lot of times they turn into like beginning positions at the FBI. My last year, we had an intern on my squad, and he is now an OST, which is it's like an operational support technician. So he kind of floats around the office and can work with different groups. One thing I do like about our internship program is you can go in with any major and kind of put in like, hey, I'd like to look at, he was an accounting major, but he moved from us 6 months later, went to join like the special agents on the healthcare fraud. So you kind of get a little overview of everything.
That's pretty cool. And one thing I was going to say is it's interesting for the students listening. So Amanda was an accounting major and she's in the FBI. So really, and Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, you can be really probably any major if you have an interest to, like, there's different areas of the FBI you could probably get into.
You can be basically any major you want to be. We have a position for. Also, if anyone's interested, down the road to become a special agent, one of the things they look for is diversity in backgrounds. So they look for people like that were accountants that now want to be an agent, that when you go for a search warrant, they can be the person that looks at financial documents and says, yes, we need all of this. No, we don't need all of this. We even have people that were art majors that are now special agents that go in on the high profile like art crimes. And they're the people that get called in on those cases. So that's one of the things that I love is everyone's from a different background, but we're all striving for one goal.
That's awesome. Okay. So there's a couple of questions that have come in since we're talking about the FBI. I'm going to address that one first. So they're asking, how do they apply for the FBI internship?
So there's a website. Any government job is on usajobs.gov, but the FBI has our own. We're fbijobs.gov. And whenever there's internships, I believe ours is still open. It opened on September 13th, I believe. Normally they're open for about a month, and that just starts the process. So you just go on the website, fill in a bunch of information, upload your resume and your transcripts, and then you might not hear for a couple months. They're not the best at communicating sometimes, just because they get so much, but you will eventually get an email letting you know what the process is going. Also on there is the whole breakdown of the different internships and all the different jobs that we have. So that website will not only let you search for jobs, but it'll give you little breakdowns of what every job does.
That's awesome. And I think for anybody who's joined the LinkedIn career development group that we have, I think I've posted that a few times, the link for the internships. But yeah, thank you. Oh yeah.
This would be, so the people that are applying now, it's normally from September to October, the application process, and that's for this coming summer. So it's one thing to remember, even if you are like a sophomore or junior and that's something you do want to apply for, just kind of write that down somewhere so that you get a reminder, because it's only open for a certain time period. And a lot of people don't realize that this is the time to apply for this coming summer.
That seems like it's almost answering the question that Jackie Kaplan put in. How far in advance did you apply for a job you wish to start upon graduation in May? I think a lot of the entry level too, right?
Yes, I applied in September and found out I got the job in December, and then I didn't start till right after graduation.
Okay. Yep. And then jumping back to Janine, so I think with KPMG, same thing. You would be applying around now for jobs in May, correct?
Yeah, so applying now, I mean, for internships, yeah, definitely now would be the time. There's really the main way is to go on the KPMG website, and they have like a careers spot, and then you can search internships on there. That being said, there is other ways to look into KPMG for internships. I mean, one of them, Maureen, I think we talked about this. Always feel free to send a resume to Maureen. She can always work with me and communicate. I can always pass it along. Or you can search recruiters on LinkedIn, KPMG recruiters, because connecting with them, they might not only talk about what you're interested in, but they'll also know what requisitions are out there that you could apply to and send you up-to-date links, since sometimes the links on the website could be older or could have changed. So I always recommend communicating with a person either through LinkedIn or Maureen and myself, but you can also just check out the website to see what kind of careers we have open.
Thank you. And then there was a follow-up to the question about applying for KPMG internships. They asked, is there a GPA requirement? I don't know. No. Okay.
No. Nope.
Okay. These are great questions. Now, Jackie, I just want to make sure, were you directing that for the KPMG job that you were interested in, or was it more for the FBI, or both?
Sorry, I meant just in general, like a general rule of thumb.
So the more competitive firms are recruiting now for jobs in, for after you graduate. As far as I understand it, I mean, there will be obviously organizations that do recruit closer to graduation. But yeah, the very competitive firms are recruiting now. So I definitely, and we could always talk further if you have specific companies you're targeting. I'm happy to help you figure all that out. Does anybody, let me just see. Okay. Okay. All right, great. So the last thing I had, because I'm not seeing any other questions, was I just wanted to know if you wanted to just comment on your thought as to either the value of an internship, when, I don't know if you're involved in hiring at this point, but is that important for a student to make sure that they try to get at least one internship on their resume before they graduate? And we want to go with Amanda first.
Okay. I suggest getting an internship just to figure out if it's what you want to do. Not necessarily, I mean, for entry-level jobs, I know with mine, I didn't necessarily need one. Was able to use it to say I've had the experience. But I look at my internship, so I was in the honors program, so I was going away to Europe for the summer of my junior year, and was able to I knew that I needed something. I wanted to get some sort of experience to see if accounting was really what I wanted to do. So like Janine said earlier, like, be persistent. The way I found my internship was my sophomore year. I emailed every single small accounting firm in the whole county I was living in, saying, I'm going away next summer for this, but I'd really like to get some experience. And I ended up having a firm that said, you know what, come in, we'll show you what it's like. I ended up doing two tax seasons with them. And I realized at the end of it that regular accounting, dealing with tax or just audit, was not what I wanted to do. And that just kind of solidified, okay, I'm making the right decision going into the financial analyst or forensic analyst kind of way of accounting versus going into tax. So, I mean, definitely getting the experience is always going to help you to be able to talk during an interview and kind of get some stuff on your resume. But it also just kind of gives you a viewpoint of what your life might look like if you follow down that path. And you can see if that's actually what you enjoy. And you can also talk to the people around you that are in those positions and kind of get a feel for what they think and how their lives have been.
That's awesome advice. Okay. Thanks, Amanda. Janine, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel very similar. It is a really great way to figure out what you want and also what you don't want out of a position. like I said earlier, I had an internship that I really didn't enjoy all that much. And it really kind of like solidified, like, okay, I mean, I like finance, but what part of finance do I want to go into? I thought wealth management, because I was like, I like people, I like to do that, but found out the work just wasn't for me. And going more towards a firm like KPMG and being a financial analyst, I ended up liking that so much more. And it opened up so many more doors for me for becoming a data analyst. So you got to just kind of find your fit. And I would say try everything. I mean, my internships weren't that massive before. My first one was working for the Rockland County Bar Association, like just mailing envelopes and stuff like that. It wasn't anything crazy, but I was on the job. I was learning. I was in an environment with like legal professionals. So I was learning how to talk to them and what they could get from my help. So even just the smallest internships where you're not maybe doing massive work or anything in a massive firm, it can still get you places. I mean, KPMG recognized it. The internship after that was with Ameriprise. And although that was a little bit bigger, wasn't like I was in the city or anything. I was local in Rockland. So there is no internship too small. All of them count. So don't hesitate to go local to start and then branch out. Or you might just do local and find out that small spots are for you. I had a mentee do that where she was like, KPMG is great, but it's huge. And I just want a small group of people that I get to know and like to work with. And she ended up in a small firm. So it's a great way to just figure yourself out. And like I said, look local and then branch out as you grow in your time at STAC.
That's great. All right. So I'm going to just pause for a moment. We're at the end of the session. If there's a burning question, I'm just looking at the chat. I don't see anything else coming in. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to thank you both so much for coming back. You guys get back to STAC all the time by joining in on things like this. So thank you so much for doing this for our students. Thanks for your time and all that information that you shared. And I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Yes. Thank you for having us.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.